So welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be touching on effortless efficiency. So maximizing productivity with Marketo templates and tokens. Hopefully you're in the right place. Just before we begin, I'm sure a lot of you on the call are already aware of JDF marketing, but if I could just give a little short introduction, that would be great. So JDF marketing has been around for about 5 years now, and the key point of difference for us is that our consultancy business focuses purely on Marketo Engage. And that means that as consultants, we are in the solution day in, day out. We operate with a wide variety of industries. You can see a few on the screen here, and that's everything from financial services to education, technology, and everything in between. We work with our clients across a range of use cases, from BAU support, technical implementations, training. You'll have seen quite a bit about training on our website. So if any of those things perk your ears up, feel free to go and have a look through the website. There's a load of information on there. And it all means, as I say, that we're in the solution day in, day out, working with different clients across a range of industries and get to see, they're in the privileged position of seeing a range of best practice. So we can take things that work from one place and implement them into another. And hopefully working with yourselves, get the chance to do that. Just very quickly, I'm Paddy. So I'm a Marketo certified expert, which means I've been working in the solution for quite a while. Hopefully have seen a lot of it. I've understood some of the pros and cons of the solution. And as I said previously, I'm able to share quite a bit of best practice about what works and what potentially doesn't. And we're going to cover today tokens, as I mentioned, how we can utilize them to save time, how we can standardize your approach, and how we can help to scale your marketing efforts using these tokens. The benefits of program templates and why you can't afford to ignore them, why they're really going to save you some time and some energy, hopefully, after this call, and how these techniques can supercharge your campaign development process. And then a little bit of a Q&A at the end if we've got a chance. So let's start at the end. We all ask ourselves the same fundamental question. I know everybody thinks it. How can we do more with less time and not lose any of that quality and that consistency that we like to maintain across everything that we do? So with things like events programs, it's often rinse and repeat. We do the same, or at least very similar events time after time, and a lot of the components remain the same. And I think we all know how easy it is for one of them tiny little components to be missed on any build that we're doing. And that tiny thing that we've missed can cause a whole raft of errors, or can stop us being able to track a program, its effectiveness, or be able to report as we would like to. With regards to scalability and compliance, we can streamline the sign-off process. You know, if we're going to be rinsing and repeating, do we need to sign that same campaign off every single time? There may be some efficiencies to be had there. And we can put measures in place to ensure that the important processes and pieces of information that I touched on before are never missed. And then finally, consistency is king in Marketo. So if you've spoken to a consultant before, they'll be speaking about naming conventions, data hygiene programs, all those things that come across as the boring things, but are the real important components within Marketo, because it's very, very easy to overcomplicate things. So what are program templates? So program templates are a best practice, essentially, are folders within Marketo that house your best practice. And we can, as I said before, rinse and repeat using these things. We build them once, and we build them in such a way that they allow us to clone them and repurpose them. They can include local assets. So local assets are assets that are part of a particular program, such as, you know, emails, smart campaigns. They can reference global assets. A global asset is an asset that sits, as you can imagine, globally across your instance and can be used across any program within it. And that saves you, crucially, that saves you rebuilding things. So say you use a global form, you don't need to build a form in every single program that you create. And inbuilt processes and tagging. So this could be things like escalation steps. It could be revenue model stage updates. It could be lead scoring. And also these programs are already structured correctly. They're already named appropriately, and they include all the required reports. And as I mentioned before, come with a clear and easy to follow document. So how can the next person pick up on this program? Can they clone it? Can they rinse and repeat it? Can anybody pick that up? I think that's what we should all be asking ourselves. Can anybody follow these steps on this piece of documentation and crucially not have to be a Marketo expert? So you'll recognize some of the tokens on the screen there. This is just a bit of a crude representation of them. I imagine a lot of you have seen those exact tokens. So those tokens are the typical things that you see appear in email marketing solutions. So input name field here, so you can personalize your emails. And really that level of personalization makes a big difference. So there's a good way and there's a bad way of doing it. And everybody has their opinion on that. You know, first name and every email potentially might not be the best way to personalize. You know, is there a more intelligent way that you could do that and contextualize your emails? So you'll see things in there like program names, things that they've signed up for, event dates. These aren't the obvious put first name field in here. These are the more contextual components, contextual use of tokens. So just some simple examples there, but you can see on the right of the screen, some slightly more complex examples, and that's actually taken from a webinar program. You can see everything in there from event costs to event descriptions and how you could use some of these tokens almost to write an email for you. So on this slide, I've just outlined a range of token types just to show you the kind of thing that's available and pull out some of them components that you saw on that image on the previous slide. And as I mentioned, it's important not to overuse tokens. So tokens are one of those things that look really pretty when you create an email, and it's very easy to have every other word as a token. The novelty can soon kind of overcome you. So I would just be aware of that as you're working with tokens. And remember to question, you know, are they actually serving a purpose? Is that token doing anything? Or as I said before, does it just look pretty? You can see from the top half of the table there. So the first range of tokens are perfect for personalization. So that is things like first name. You've got things like company website in there. And also member.webinar URL, that example, that and all member tokens are really fantastic for things like webinar programs, which we'll touch on quickly later on. I've also captured in there some more complex token types there on the bottom half of that table. These are slightly more advanced, but these tokens can be used in an operational context a lot of the time to help you capture some really interesting data points. And they can then spin those data points, as you would imagine, out into some actions and some reporting. There is actually a full list of token types that I will share after we've spoken through these slides. So I'm just going to jump over very quickly into our instance. So if I just stop sharing. So I'm just very top level going to touch on some of these. So this one here is a download. And what I'm trying to show you here is how simple and how complex these things can be, but crucially, how important and how useful they can be. So this one, as I say, is a download. And you can see in there, relatively small number of steps. So for a visit's web page, requesting emails, filling out forms. And if I just click into one of these, the goal is you rinse and repeat, as I say. So we would right click on this and we would clone it, give it its new name, and we would work our way through each of these smart campaigns and emails and assets. And we would just simply update them with the relevant information. Just go in and fill out form. So you can see here, the trigger is already in there. So what we're wanting to do here with this little campaign is we want to say if they filled out this form, move them onto to the flow steps. So filled out form name is, and we're ready to just drop in there the form that we're talking about and what web page is it on. So you don't have to think about what are the triggers, what are the filters that I need to use in this campaign. It's done for you. As soon as you cloned it, the relevant triggers are in place for you to go and mobilize. And it's exactly the same with flow steps. Once you've cloned your campaign, it's important to note that certain aspects will deactivate. So things like assets, like emails, will become unapproved. You've got to go back in and approve them. And that is just a fail safe, because we need to make sure that you are going back through all of these things, because it'd be easy to just say, I'm sure that one will be fine. And actually it's not linked up correctly to the new information. But you can see here that things we've used tokens in there. So things like interesting moments are already ready to go. We've got success statuses, we've got data change values, and all of this is would be quite complex and quite long-winded to go through every single time you want a program and drag every single one in. Going back to that comment before of how easy would it be not to drag one of these in. And then I just wanted to touch on this example here as well. So this one is a webinar, and you can see already if I start expanding some of this, there's a lot of assets in there and there's a lot of campaigns in there, and that's quite a bit of work. So if we can do that work once and then just use it again and again and again, that's so much more efficient, you know, than if we were to say, now go build that whole thing again. But actually it looks very, very similar to the previous one. So again, you would clone it, and you can see if we just click into some of these, especially in something like this, where it has a large number of assets, the fact that that information pulls through is really useful. So we can see here, this filter is saying if you're a member of this program, and the program is, and that program's already complete. So as soon as I give this program a name, this field here will update. And then if we jump to a flow step, we're sending an email. And that is one of these emails up here, this one here. So as soon as I go into that email, and assuming that I've worked through this sequentially, and I do I update my assets first, and then I move on to my campaigns, all of this is just going to trickle through. And you can see the efficiencies that this kind of solution provides, rather than, as I say, having to build that whole thing again and again. So hopefully that just gives you a quick flavor of the kind of thing that you can build. So scaling with program templates. What do we need to think about when we're scaling? So the first part is design, as you can see there. So have you covered everything? And is your program built to last? So when you're building your program the first time, if you don't build it right, it's just going to compound over time. It's going to become harder and harder. So make sure there's none of those errors in the first instance that are just going to get worse and worse as you go. Because if you build it, as I say, if you build it wrong that first time and then you rinse and repeat, you're rinsing, repeating that issue. It's a lot easier to fix the issues, crucially, at that template stage as well, which is something really important to note. So make sure you test in that design phase. Can you make sure that nothing's going to go wrong before you start rolling that thing out? Documentation, we touched on that briefly before as well. So the whole idea of these templates is that somebody can pick them up and build their own program, and crucially can follow the documentation. So there's two main errors that often happen there. And the first is the program is too complex. As we mentioned with the token section, we can throw a load of tokens in. We can do 1,000,001 smart campaigns with 1,000,001 assets and make it really quite complex for somebody to pick up and unpick and be able to rinse and repeat. So are we just using the components that we need within these programs is the first question you ask when you're building these out. And the second is the documentation written in such a way that anybody can pick it up and run with it? Certainly in my experience, the idea of creating these templates is that somebody with less experience within the platform is able to create them. If without that need, you could just keep building these things. So I'm sure most of you on the call, your goal is to offload a little bit of this work, whether it be to another individual or whether it just be offloaded in the sense that you'd have to do less of it. It takes less time to do it. And then process. So make your program accessible to everybody that we touched on. Keep it updated, crucially. So it's very easy to build a program template, keep rinsing and repeating, come back to it in 6 months' time and realize actually doesn't make a great deal of sense anymore. Isn't working as well as we wanted it to. And then another important thing is to back it up. You know, make sure that when you create a program, you create a backup somewhere, and that can be a relatively simple backup. You can just create another folder within your Marketo instance, put a Z at the front of it so it drops all the way to the bottom and doesn't confuse matters. But just have a backup program somewhere when you're playing with it and you mess it up, you can reactivate your backup and start again. And then QA, QC, quality control. We always suggest that someone other than the program builder checks your work, and we do that internally, and we suggest that everybody does it. When you're looking at this thing for so long, and program templates take a while to create, when you're looking at it for a long time, it's very easy to put those kind of goggles on and just agree with everything that you've done. You need somebody else to to throw out those disagreements and say, actually, is that correct? Is that going to work? And then, sorry, last thought on that slide there is to try and limit the number of approvers. And that we find it's a bit of a too many cooks spoil the broth scenario. You need one person to make sure that they're in there and they're approving it and they know what that program template is for. If you throw too many people at it, it can really cloud people's judgment. So looping back around to JTF. So how can JTF help you with program templates and tokens? So as I mentioned earlier, we are in the solution all day, every day. And putting these templates in place is one of those tasks that looks really, really daunting when you do your first one, but it doesn't take too long for us when we're working in it day in, day out for them to become second nature. So leverage that and allow us to share that best practice with you. We can help you design templates. So, you know, we don't have to build them. We can help you in a consultative space. We can build them, of course. We can build them out, potentially save a bit of time for you. And we can even supply the documentation. And the blue sky thinking process there would be all three. You know, we can design them, we can build them, and we can supply them back to you with documentation. And we take out all of that legwork in the middle. So I'm just going to very quickly touch on this Marketo audit slide. So we do actually offer Marketo audit totally for free. So if you're interested in that, I just urge you to jump over onto our website, jdfmarketing.co. You will soon find the forms to fill in, and we will go through your instance and just offer some advice. There'll be things in there that you've never thought of. There'll be things in there that you have thought of, but you just haven't got around to. And there's everything in there from how much of the platform are you utilizing, how mature is your platform in that sense, how many assets you've got in there, how many programs you've got in there. Can we do a cleanse? Can we clean things up? Can we make sure your data is working well for you? A whole host of things. And crucially, we can tailor that audit to suit your needs. So if there's something in particular you need to focus on, just let us know. Hopefully that was a useful webinar for you all. And as I say, I'll reach out to anybody that I haven't answered a question from there. And please don't hesitate to get in touch with myself or anybody at JTF, or hop over to our website and complete one of our contact forms if you're interested in a specific area. Thanks again, and speak soon.